start Winedown Wednesday with your hosts, Missy, Dawn, Angie, TJ, Nikki, and Lindsay. So grab your glass or your cup and join us for great conversations about, well, who knows? Let's just enjoy the evening. Here we go.
Hola, family, and welcome to another live edition of Facebook Winedown with Hands of Melody. We are honored that you join us again. For those of you that watch later, thank you again for watching us. Again, my name is Missy. I am the owner of Hands of Melody Doula Services, where we provide support from conception all the way through to where your little person is 2 years old. And I'm gonna stop saying 2 because once you 2, like, you just stuck. So we're not, you just have to come back in and help the rest of us raise the tinies. So welcome again. We are joined by my normal co-host. A few of us are missing, but mom life, what can you do? We have with us Rachel and Angie and Nick and Dawn, and some other ones may pop in. We may have some mommies joining us tonight. As always, if you would like to join us in the conversation to express your opinion, like live while we're talking, you can send an email to hello@melodichands.com and we can send you a link. Or if we're actually live, you can send it to Angie@melodichands.com because Angie monitors the chat, and I may or may not be able to see your request for to be able to join us. So welcome. Again, everybody's entitled to their own opinions here. Some of the topics that we talk about, everybody has a difference of opinion. And so as long as you do it respectfully, you are allowed to say whatever you would like in this space. So welcome, and hopefully some of you can join our conversation. Tonight, before we get started, I'm going to do one of our 2-minute segments with one of our moms. I'll let Nick or Rachel decide which one of y'all feel like you want to talk to the people tonight. You got it, Nick?
Are you pointing at me?
Okay. She pointed at you.
I guess our 2-minute tip for the day, since we're in travel season, could be something that I just recently experienced, which was having toys for my, toddler on our flight. Our flight was only like an hour long, but one of the key things is to have toys that they don't normally play with at home so that they're actually interested and that they want to play with them. Of course, tons of snacks as well. A big hit for us was stickers. So I went to the dollar store and got like the puffy type of stickers that are easy to peel off of stuff. And he stuck them on the chairs, the tray table, the window. He had a blast, and I like to think it helps with his motor skills. So that was a great hit for us, and it kept him pretty busy for our flight.
So there you go. So that is something actually that I had never thought about. Like, I always packed a diaper bag with stuff, and I never thought about like a to-go bag where it's just stuff that they never played with before. That makes a lot of sense. So that is something that when we travel this summer, we're going to do it. So that is the 2-minute tip with our millennial mom, Nick. And we'll get tidbits from different people, probably each time that we come to talk to you live. Tonight, we're going to talk about a couple of things. And we might not get it all in because we only have an hour, but I wanted to talk about 2 things. And I'll start with the, not that one is, they're different. So we're going to talk about a little bit about advocacy for your little people. So next Wednesday, we will actually be joined live by Dr. Thompson from TLC Pediatrics here in Bowie. She's excited to join our conversation. And so tonight, we're going to talk about a couple of things. And then also, if you have any questions that you would like for us to ask her, if you put them in the chat tonight, then we can take those questions down. I can send them over to her so that when she comes in with us, then she kind of has a list of questions of things. Is it me that's freezing, guys, or is it No, okay. So when she comes in, it'll kind of keep the conversation flowing, and she'll know how much time she has because she'll have a list of questions. So unfortunately, because of where we live closer to the Pennsylvania line, we are not able to go to Dr. Thompson at TLC, even though I've been to her office with a couple of clients and I love her as a pediatrician. And I think with any good pediatrician, you're gonna like some things, not like some things. It's like a relationship. You married to whoever you married to, and y'all don't always see eye to eye, but you have to find a pediatrician that suits you best. And one, at the very least, that will listen to you when you have a concern. So I'll start with ours, which is kind of why I wanted to talk about the advocacy piece. So most of you all know that we have 1-year-old twins. There'll be 2 in July. But from the time that my tiniest twin, she was the older twin, but she was the tiniest twin. From the time that she was about 6 months old, I started noticing that she had a little bit of a, like an off-centered eye. It wasn't like most people look at her and they don't see it, but as a mom, you see them every day. And so I noticed that it was sometimes that we would see a little bit that it would be off-centered. And as she got closer to being 1, we would always say, Beanie, fix your eye. And so she would know to like blink really hard, or now she'll take her hand and she'll like cover her eye. And so we were seeing a different pediatrician. And so I asked the pediatrician, I said, is this something I should be worried about? And they were like, no, she's got time. They'll kind of straighten themselves out as long as they are centered. But I think it's like 9 months, but as long as they are centered when they do their visits and they check, then she's good. She'll outgrow it, all this kind of stuff. So it didn't sit well with me, but I was like, okay, so we'll give it some more time. Now she's coming up on 2, and I mentioned it to the second pediatrician 3 or 4 times. Now, I'm not a first-time mom by any means. These, as I always say, these are babies 7 and 8, and we've dealt with a lot of things, but by this time, none of my babies still had what I considered off-centered eyes. And again, it's not always. So I said something to the pediatrician. It was like, nope, she got time. Like I said, well, at what point should we go to the eye doctor? And they told me like 4. And so I started putting it in like some of my mommy groups. And certain people were saying, oh, well, like my little person, had the same kind of issue, and the doctor said the same thing. So I'm kind of following what the conversation is. So something in me said, nope, we're going to the doctor. So I made her a pediatric eye appointment to see a specialist. And the specialist told us today that it's not actually one eye, it's both eyes, but they compensate in one eye. And what happens is in infants, so in adults, if we had kind of the same thing, we would have double vision. And so in infants up to a certain age, if that eye is off-centered, her brain will shut it down so that she only gets singularity of vision out of the one eye. So the light is coming in, but the brain is not getting 2 different signals so that she's not off. And so for 70 to 80% of children, is what he told me, they will have to have some sort of corrective surgery. It is about a 45-minute procedure, and it's better if they catch it when they're younger. So had I waited till she was 4, not only would she have needed the surgery, but she probably would have needed a patch and then glasses and like this whole thing.
More. Yeah.
So for me, I think being an advocate as a doula for so long, I'm not a wait and see kind of person. And if something keeps gnawing at me, then I'm going to ask questions, even if they're tired of me asking questions. And if you don't give me the answer I want, I'm probably going to go 3 or 4 different people to get that answer. And so that bothered me. So one, for all of you that have reached out to me about the appointment today, if your little person has what we call a lazy eye, which is a weak eye, then you need to be seeing an eye doctor or whatever the case may be, because after a certain point, it's not just going to correct itself. And you don't want them to have to wear glasses early, and you don't want kids are cruel. Kids are cruel. We had a cousin that was younger, and she, and it was like she got picked on and all this other kind of stuff, and eventually she was like 8 or 9 by the time I think it was corrected. But by that time she had all of these things going on. So please advocate for your children. If your pediatrician is not giving you the answer, they're a specialist. If there are different people that you can talk to, advocate for your little people from the get-go. And especially if you have tinier little people or preemies, especially micro preemies, they need a lot of different things. So don't let somebody else's, it'll be okay, be your answer if it's gnawing at you. Anybody else have anything?
I know of someone that had that happen. Not necessarily your situation. It was more like cataracts when they were younger, and their parents didn't follow through to take them to, get looked at and cared for when they were younger. And as time went on, they were blinking a lot. They would just blink, 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 because it was affected. And then it's affecting reading. It's affecting your ability to make sense of things, because now you're slower. Your brain is now using one eye versus the other and things like that. And it just eventually, by the time they fixed it, needed a whole new lens in their eye. Needed a whole new lens, just because the parents knew it just wasn't a priority for them. And to your point, yes, get it checked out, but then whatever the financial cost, whatever the time is, you have to put that, because that's your eyes. That's like your window to the world. And it's tied to so many things, not just your brain, but your ability to do so many things. And it creates stigmas, from others when they see oh, wait, you have a disability or whatever. Right. So yeah, that's a very good call out, and so glad that you were able to kind of stick to your feelings of, no, I need to get it checked out, instead of waiting until, God forbid, 4.
And the body is amazing. So the fact that and somebody so young, it's like covering that eye and they just work. But he also said, you can't continue to close that eye off, because it's gonna, it's
then the body would just kill
it. Do damage. And he also said, in us, it would require he said, it would cause headaches. It could cause, how do we know that these babies aren't getting headaches? And we think they just fussy, and we're going through all of these things, because I can't speak to anybody else, but of all the times my babies have ever been fussy, any of them, my mind never went to maybe they got a headache. I never, that's not one of the things that we think about when our littles are so small that, maybe they cranky because they got a headache. Maybe they, we get a headache, we can want to lay down and get fussy, but we want to just we checking fevers and different things like that. Who knows? So I just want y'all to be really mindful of things that gnaw at you. If you got littles, or if you're pregnant, and something seems not right, it's the same thing. You've got to advocate for yourself. And if you're not the advocating type, because there's something called white coat syndrome. So there are people that if a doctor just says it, I don't feel like I should challenge, I don't. And some people kind of step back, even some of your strongest people. There are people that are all over the place, I'm here and I'm showing up, and then get in front of a doctor or whatever, and they kind of back themselves back. If that's you, find a person that's going to stand up for you, with you, all of that kind of stuff. Because for us, my husband are both, we're going to say something. So if you're not that person, please, by all means, find that person. If you're pregnant, doulas, that's part of our job description. Some of the biggest things that we do, one of the biggest part, standing there and holding your legs and telling you breathe and push, that's the easy part for us. Getting you to that point safely, and then making sure within the short term right after that it stays that way. That's kind of our main focus. So today when I left that doctor's office, as my grandmother says, I was hot like fish grease, is what she used to tell us. So that's how I felt. So anybody else have anything to add on advocacy or?
Yeah, I mean, I would say my son had a weird thing. His was intussusception. I guess I'm saying that right. I don't know. But apparently it happens to a lot of boys more than it happens to girls. And it was where his intestine like telescoped into itself. And it manifested in a lot of weird symptoms like throwing up, projectile throwing up, super fussy, bunching up, stretching out, until ultimately he had blood in his stool. And you do get like white coat syndrome. Like I had taken him to urgent care so many times for all of these other symptoms beforehand that when it came to the blood in the stool, I knew how serious that was. But I was like, I have already gone like 3 or 4 times. And luckily we have a doctor in the family. So we were able to text her and she actually was like, I don't want to scare you, but it sounds like intussusception. So when you go, say this word and say, I want you guys to look into this. And if she hadn't done that, I probably would have shied out of even going. But that's exactly what it was. And we ended up at Children's Hospital. And I mean, it was an easy fix, but I couldn't imagine if I was too scared or like, you know, didn't listen to other people in my family who maybe thought I was overreacting and didn't do anything.
And everybody doesn't have a doctor in the family. Like, who do you?
I bring a point to the other side. This didn't happen to me personally. I'm in another mommy group, and one of the mommies, I'm sure you won't mind me asking this question. She shared a post today. She's on baby number 2. Her first one is just turned 2. Baby number 2 was just born, less than 7 days old, and her doctors are pushing her to get the baby's ears pinned. I think that was the term. I had never heard that before. So I looked it up, and apparently the baby's ear are giving Martin vibes, like way out here. So they want to put her newborn baby under the knife to get her ears pinned back. And she said that they just keep pushing and so persistent about it. But here's the funny thing about it. Her 2-year-old came out the same exact way. Ears were the same way. The doctor that she had at that time didn't push it, and her 2-year-old ears are completely fine. Solely cosmetic, nothing that is threatening, and her doctors are pushing her for it. And she made the point that to let us know that this is a very expensive surgery that is not covered by her health insurance. So when you look at that side of things, when they're pushing things for the coin, it's another thing to think about, because she was really contemplating it and having mom guilt about it, because she was like, am I setting my child up to be teased when they're school age with big ears? Like, am I really doing that? But I just had to tell her, I said, I don't always trust Dr. G, but literally I Googled the term, and the first 3 posts all said, you do not do a surgery like this on a newborn. If you want to do this, this is something you do around age 5 to 7. So I was like, why are her doctors so persistent about putting born under a problem that can correct itself? So
but that insurance piece is a good point too, because I guess like my millennial mom standpoint, I remember when I first had to take him to the urgent care, I remember calling them and being like, so how much does this cost? Before I took them. And I felt kind of bad doing that, but I was like, taking him, and I need to know, like, am I about to be hit with this crazy bill? And then realize like, I got state insurance and they're going to pay. When I got to the emergency room and they weren't trying to do the test I wanted them to do, I was like, if it's about the money, I don't care. Test his stool. I need you to see what it is. Because I was like, why aren't they doing like the test I'm asking for them to do?
Right.
But it's your baby. Like, you're going to do whatever you got to do for your baby.
And it's interesting that you mentioned the flip side when doctors are trying to, recommend something for the financial gain. Because I took Jaden to his first dental appointment, after he turned a year old or whatever. And it's some new doctor. And she was amazing, very nice doctor. But then towards the end, she's like, oh, he has a gap at the top of his teeth. So I was like, okay, and like he only got 8 teeth, 4 at the top, 4 at the bottom.
And they don't fall out. These are gonna fall out.
You know what she told me? You know, we have a procedure that we could do. You can go and get some rubbish that she was explaining could get done to close the gap. So that way you don't, and I'm looking at her like, wait, seriously? He's a year old. I said, wait, does he gonna have to get put out? She's like, yeah, but I have a friend, another doctor that does it. I can give you her card. And you can think about it. If you don't do it now, you could do it in a couple of months or whatever. And I'm looking at her, and one side of my brain is like, oh, she's a doctor, she knows better or whatever. And then the other side of my brain is like, Rachel, you just got braces like 2 years ago. You were fine your whole life, and it was cosmetic. It was a cosmetic reason. Ain't nobody cared about no gap in your teeth or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And Jaden is a year old. I fixed my face to tell my husband. He looked at me like, are you serious right now? I said, no, I just want to make sure like you knew, because in my head, I'm like, I am not putting my child under anesthesia for some stupid gap. And insurance is not paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
But she sat there and because the visit was a regular cleaning and her just, 1 year old, what are you going to do? So she's not getting paid anything major off my visit, but now she's trying to
think of something,
possibly to try to get something for now, a referral or whatever. And now her friend is going to get money if I say yes. And I'm just like, okay. I see how this is going to go.
Manaya had gaps between all of her teeth when she was a baby. And I asked about that. And he was like, first of all, that's not a bad problem to have. He said, because when her adult teeth come in, it gives them space so they're not crowded. He said, now, if they still have spaces, like when she gets her adult teeth and you want to do something about it, you can. But he was like, that's not a bad problem. Now, he said, you don't know how many crowded mouths I've seen. And those people always have to have like wisdom teeth pulled. And then they ended up with like braces and all of this stuff. So I was like, you know what? That's a good point.
Crazy.
That's a good point. So some of this stuff, everything is run by the insurance company. Y'all know they refer, the doctor refer, and then the money come back to the doctor, and then they refer, and then they give you a sample. And the sample, when you go to get the prescription filled, is like $400, and then you like, yeah.
Well, so let me do some rubbish like that at my job and see if I can still keep my job. Like, why is it okay? Like, you're the medical profession person, and I'm paying you all this money, but yet when you tell me something, I may have to second guess you, or I may have to triple and double check to see if you're making decisions in the best interest of your patient or in the best interest of your pocket.
Money rules.
Like, why is that okay? And they still
also think of one element of it too is just the culture that we live in, right? Like, I was grading papers today and Aaron Brockovich was on, and I was like, oh, I remember that was a real person. And I fell down the Dr. Google rabbit hole of like, oh, like how much of the movie was accurate, and like were the other people who were like in the movie also real people. And one of the things it then led to an article I was reading on Julia Roberts that talks about how like she is anti-Botox, because she's like, I want my kids to be able to look at me and know when I'm happy, when I'm sad, when I'm angry, and be able to read my expressions. And I want them to see that like aging is okay. Like, that's what people do. You age, and they need to be able to see what that looks like. And I want to know what I look like at 60. And I was like, that is so interesting, because I get migraines. And I remember people saying, have you ever considered Botox? And I was like, what?
The commercials now,
right? Like, all of a sudden now Botox is a way. And so it's just these different things that I feel like in this effort of, oh my gosh, I don't want my kid to be teased. Well, here's a possible reason your kid might be teased. And like, how many parents have gone to dentists to say, this is something going on with my kid. Is there a way to fix it? And so it's like, you know what? Before they even ask, let me go ahead and tell them, yeah, there's a way. Are you interested? Right. And it's like this catch-22, because I don't want you to advertise stuff because of other parents' insecurities, like illegitimate insecurities. I think Misty's concern about the babies was like very legitimate. But when you're like, oh, when she smiles sometimes, she doesn't, her eyes don't always sparkle. Is there something you can do for that? And it's like, are you kidding me? Like, come on, like, it is okay. I just want to make sure she doesn't have cataracts because her eyes don't sparkle. And so it's just, there's an element of it that I very much think is like insurance and doctors and the medical industry. But I also think that there's an element of it that is just our society that is so focused on how we physically look and having to always be perfect that trickles down to making sure that we have designer babies.
Then is it, not to belabor this issue, but the parents who I could say are hyper focused on those things, those are probably high dollar paying parents. And so now the doctors and the dentists are tailoring to that audience and saying, we should offer this because there are parents out there who will pay for this. But then you end up sucking in parents who cannot afford it, but you just made them think that there was a problem that they needed to fix. And they're breaking bank and borrowing from Peter and Paul to pay this. So yeah, I can see your point, but
yeah.
It is. There's a real need for things like braces and all of the other stuff, but then there's a cosmetic reason. And I think for me, the bigger issue is, how does my child feel about themselves? What is it that makes them say that unless I get these braces, I'm not going to be pretty enough or whatever? And so we've got to start to teach them to learn to love themselves. Now, if I feel amazing about myself and I get in my 20s and I go, you know what, I really don't like this gap, so I'm gonna go get it fixed. That's one thing, but I should not be getting the gap fixed because of what other people feel like my pretty is, or what my handsome is, or I can't get a date if I can't, get my gap closed and all this other stuff. So making sure that if you want cosmetic, whatever, and you can afford to pay for it, by all means, do you, but check the reason that you do stuff. And if it's because somebody else is not making you feel good about you, then check the somebody else and not yourself, because I can't base how I look on somebody else. And that's the problem. And because of that, it's a $1 trillion industry for all of these cosmetic things that people are going through and doing to themselves. And people can't smile because they just like, they can't smile because what was the chick's name? Joan Rivers. She didn't have a smile when she left out of here. She'd had so many surgeries. And I personally didn't see a problem with how she looked when she first started. But it wasn't for me, it was for her. But you shouldn't have to do it to keep up, with somebody else. So there's a legitimate reason, and then there's a reason that you need to evaluate. If you still want it, by all means, get it done. But, something like eyes, correcting vision, that's one thing. Teeth causing pain in the mouth or like crowding or whatever, that's a thing. People that for whatever reason need cosmetic surgeries, wherever it is, go for it because you want it, not because somebody else wants you to have it. So that's my advocate for yourself above all and against all. Advocate for yourself when people try to tell you. And that whole BMI chart, I would set it on fire, because if I was at my weight, I got some chunk now that I'm trying to get off, but hence the water. However, if I got to my BMI thing on the chart, I look like y'all be trying to be, is Missy on something like this? Does somebody need an intervention? Do we need to sit by the campfire? I'm not doing that. So that's just me. So anybody have anything else before we move on? So I'm gonna switch gears, but don't forget next week, Dr. Thompson will be here, pediatrician, and she can answer some of that. And we're also going to have her talk about this formula shortage and some of the desperate measures people are taking to make formula stretch and to make their own and all of that. So I want you to have information. There are a lot of people to make their own formula. If that's what you're doing and that's what works for you in your household, that's what will work for you in your household. I want you to have the information. And a tip, if you're looking for formula and you can't find it, get yourself a set of girlfriends or guy friends. It don't even matter. And tell them every time they are in a store, whether they need it or not, walk past the formula aisle and take a picture of whatever's on the shelf and send it out and say, hey, anybody need formula? So-and-so got it here, so-and-so got it here. That way we are checking for everybody else to make sure that these babies are getting what they need. So get you a group and send that information out.
Also posting it on Facebook, because you'd be surprised how people that have WIC have a little bit of a stock. At this point, we gotta help each other
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
That was my situation. I had a good stock that I would give away. And if I still had the benefit, I would go buy it, even though I don't use it anymore, just for someone else. So
Yeah, by all means.
Called the PG County Mommy Group. Somebody had posted like 4 or 5 cans of samples that they had and they were trying to share. And I don't know if you mentioned this already, but checking with the pediatrician office too, because Roy, I mean, we were on formula. She's 2 now, but I remember I didn't even need it, but our pediatrician is Dr. Thompson, who's going to be on next week. She gave us, like, every time we went to an appointment, she gave us like 5 or 6 cans, like,
wow.
here, take these samples. And we had those to use because it was actually the formula that we were using. And she just so happened to have the samples when she found out we were using it, and she just gave it to us. So
yeah, check with anybody, everybody, OB's office, pediatrician's office, whoever can get it. And if you find yourself in a stock of something, because I know we had some from like when the girls got sick and they didn't drink a whole lot. We just had extra cans when they were done. And so you find out who needs them. And I posted, I was like, hey, I got this, anybody need it? And if you are breastfeeding, there are mommies that are donating like breast milk right now. So you just have to, reach out and say, I'm in need. And our community is so large that there are people that you don't know if you don't ask. So don't sit in your private misery or whatever and don't want to ask. Please reach out for help. So we're going to switch gears a little bit for the last 30 minutes of the show. And I want to stay on this advocacy piece. And right before we started this, Rachel and I were talking, and it started because I saw a story this morning that I posted about Judge Hatchett. She used to have a daytime show, and her son's wife had a baby via C-section, and within 12 hours she had passed. And he advocated for his wife or kept asking the nurse, like, hey, can you check her or whatever? And they kind of dismissed her to the point that the nurse was like, your wife is not a priority. First of all, that's a whole different situation that you would say that out your mouth. But according to him, that is what was said. So again, this may be a little bit of a trigger, but I definitely, as a birth advocate, I want people to be aware. So I am going to show the story because I want you guys to see it. And normally I don't show anything any longer than like a minute, but this is 3 minutes, and I want you guys to watch it, and then we'll talk a little bit about it, because Rachel and I were talking about it, and I had another thought. So I want to share, and y'all know how I do, so y'all gotta let me know if y'all not seeing my screen. Can you see it? Can y'all see it? Because I can only see Angie's. So I'm gonna
share audio.
I think I did. Okay, so I'm gonna share this with you all.
Can't hear it. Can't hear it for some reason.
There's no audio.
Can you hear it?
after giving birth to her son
No sound
via
at all?
scheduled
You
C-section.
can't?
I hear it.
Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna back it up because I want to make sure you guys get the full story.
Glenn, hi. This morning, her widower, along with attorneys, announced a civil rights lawsuit was filed against Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Now, this is in addition to a separate wrongful death lawsuit filed by the family against the hospital that is set to go to trial next week. Now, Kira Johnson died after giving birth to her son via scheduled C-section at the hospital back in 2016. Her husband, Charles Johnson, says she developed complications and that he pleaded with hospital staff to help as her condition declined, but says he was dismissed. She was taken in for an emergency surgery hours after giving birth, and that was the last time he saw her alive. He says at one point, as he implored a nurse to help her, she made a remark that haunts him to this day.
Please, can you help us? At which point she snatched her hands away from me and she said words to me that still haunt me to this very day. She said, "Sir, your wife just isn't a priority right now. Your wife just isn't a priority." Which is indicative of the way that racism was manifesting itself at this hospital. And when those doors to that operating room closed behind her, that was the last time I saw my wife alive. When they took her back into the operating room and the doctor opened her up, there were 3 liters of blood in Kira's abdomen from where she was allowed to suffer needlessly. And they worked on her for some time, but they were unable to save her.
Testimony of the witnesses, of the employees at Cedars-Sinai has established this racism in medicine.
Now, the lawsuit announced today was filed by Charles Johnson. It accuses Cedars-Sinai of violations under the Unruh Civil Rights Act, which outlaws discrimination by private businesses in California based on race. Today, the family's attorneys also released recorded depositions taken in that separate wrongful death case filed by the family to show that hospital staff testified to a culture of racism at the hospital. Angelique Washington was a surgical technologist at Cedars-Sinai.
I can write a book. I've heard statements. I've heard throughout the years in the OR, behind the scenes. I've heard racial comments toward patients that were asleep.
Mr. Johnson said he filed this lawsuit to protect women of color, and he's hoping that institutions will make changes. Now, we reached out to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. I'm told that a statement is being prepared, and we'll share that with you once we get it. Reporting.
That is sad.
Very heartbreaking.
It is. It to wake up and see that this morning, like I kind of heard the story, but to put faces with it, like was heartbreaking. And I think if you read through, like there's an article too, if you read through, it talks about like it was only like 17 minutes or something that the surgery was, and surgery in 17 minutes. I mean, come on. So that was very heartbreaking for me, but I want to add this thought to anybody that is watching. I saw something on nightly news probably a week ago that said the average age of women giving birth in this country now is late 30s and early 40s. The 20-somethings are career focused, all that kind of stuff. They getting their life together, whatever, and like deciding to have kids later. So if that's the case, then and there's medical information that says women over 40 should not go to 40 weeks, then are we pushing more inductions, which pushing more inductions are going to end in more C-sections? So how are we lowering the C-section rate when the average woman that's going to have a baby after 35, which is advanced maternal age, again, that's the thought. But after 30, you got So between 18 and 25, you really, according to everything, you need to have these babies. And then if you hit 30, it's like, whoop, you better get it because you only got a couple more years. By 35, whoop, you missed your window. And so now you got women 35 over, which again, first babies, that's what we're talking about. We're not addressing people that having 3, 4, and 5. We're talking about first babies in their late 30s, early 40s. So now you're more than likely to be pushed towards an induction because there's an article that says can't go past 39 weeks or shouldn't hit 40 weeks if you, so 39 and 5, 39 and 4 is what a lot of our clients are telling us that they're going to be induced by. So now are you setting these women up for more C-sections? Because 39 and 5, technically, if we don't know the exact date of conception, sometimes, you know, there's that 2-week window. So technically, couldn't they be 37 and the body's not ready to labor? And now you pushing a body that is so not ready to labor over the top for a baby that might not be ready to be born. So now they're being stressed out by this Pitocin and all of this stuff that you're doing. And so how do we
and the steroids to get the baby's lungs developed in time for you to take the baby out early, because that was the scary whatever of like, wait, I was supposed to get steroids? Like what? Yeah.
So what are we doing? So if we're moving towards more C-sections, and we know we are, because the C-section rate average is totally ridiculous. I don't care where you are. The C-section rate is way up. And so now if it's way up already, and now you're going to add to it women that are having babies later, which means they're going to now be pushed to possibly having C-sections. What do we like? How do we do that? And then after you have a C-section, now you're in this room, and yeah, there's a lot of people have discomfort and everything because that's a major surgery. This whole going back to work in 6 weeks to me is the devil. I don't even understand where that comes from. I can have any other kind of surgery and they want me to be tied up, wrapped up, light duty, all of this stuff for God knows how long, but I can have a whole human from my abdomen, and you want me, of which the first 2-3 weeks you can't even sneeze. Anybody that's ever had a C-section will tell you the thought of inhaling too deep is going to aggravate that scar. So by 6 weeks, you mean I'm well enough to be back at somebody's job, let alone my 6-week-old doesn't need me. He should be, or she should be in the care of somebody different. That's a whole different subject. But now you are pushing more people to C-sections, and C-sections sometimes don't end the way we want. And what's the line? Do we say, oh, this is normal pain, I'm okay, I'm just going to endure this, here's a couple of Percocet, some ibuprofen, you're going to be okay? What is the line to say, no, you need to check on her, like you need to come back?
Your partner can't even advocate for you. And I can imagine, like in my COVID was way worse when I had to have my C-section, but even then I couldn't even have all of the support that you imagine you're going to have when you have a child. And, you know, imagining my support person trying to advocate for me and not being listened to or not being taken seriously, and me being in such a high, I guess, or just even as anxiety high from everything it took being induced to getting to the point of even having a C-section. Now I've had it and I'm on the table and my guts are open on the other side of the table, and you're not listening to the person who's advocating for me. That's the only person I have with me. Like, that's very frustrating.
Because they're not
and
letting
if they
doors
even
in
know,
half the hospitals.
And even if they even know to say something, because they may have the white coat syndrome of, you're the doctor, you would know. So who am I to tell you what to do? Mind you, on the other side, they're like, oh, wait, something is wrong here. Let's try to fix it before, Yeah.
And doulas are some of the first people that were cut from the line of care when COVID hit. We were already struggling to be in the room. We were already struggling to be there for our clients. We were already doing all of this stuff. And we're jumping through hoops to be in hospitals. And if we're not there, the staff don't feel like we're part of the team. So we're getting pushed back. They getting pushed back because they feel like we there to spy on them and not necessarily to take care of our clients. And for every little thing we're being told, no, you can't come into the hospital. No, you can't come into the hospital. You gotta have this, you gotta do this, you gotta show. And we've had doulas lately to show up at hospitals and can't even get past the front desk. And so
In
people
a
are having
perfect world,
yes,
in a
we would be
perfect world, we could trust the white coats. Like, not to say we don't need doulas or we don't need our partner or we don't need advocates, but the simple fact that we're already at a place where we need this because we are not being treated fairly. And then to have that, whether it just be in a spouse, a partner, the father, or a doula, outsourcing even further to a doula or some type of care like that, and it's still not being respected. Why does it even take for our advocate to say to you something is wrong? You know what I mean?
I get you. And I feel like if we had more of a partnership as doulas with the hospital, there have been times, and some of y'all already on here know, there are times that Dawn and I have been in the hospital and been like, oh, the nurse is tripping. We need to call the director of nurse. We need to find out who the charge nurse is. Because if the person caring for you is not listening, we already know who the next line of defense is. So we're going right on around. Because we've asked you and asked you and asked you, we've advocated. Nope, now we're going to the next line. And if the next line don't get it, we're going to the next line. And if we had those relationships, one, the nurses would trust us. Something ain't right with her. Like, I see this person like all the time, and this is not. So we would have that relationship. But if we don't have that relationship, then sometimes we're dismissed, especially African American doulas. We are dismissed, as our clients are. There are certain hospitals I won't even go to because I already know it's a setup and they probably gonna have to have a C-section when they get there anyway. But it's hard to advocate when you're being dismissed. So I can imagine how frustrated and heartbroken and sad this husband is, and then her mom, and now he's got to raise this baby and grieve for his wife, like all because he said, did you hear him? He said the lady pulled her hands away. That means he must have reached out like almost pleading, can you please help me? And she was like, she's not a priority. I'm sorry. Wait, why is she not a priority? Like, what else if she's not the priority, who's the priority?
So listen to this stat that Shayla found, right? 31% of live births were by C-section. Out of that 31%, approximately 26% of them were first-time moms that had full-term babies that were unnecessary C-sections. World Health Organization recommends no country should go over 10 to 15%. And we're at 31.
And you increase that number when you have a C-section the first time, because you're more than likely to have one the second time and the third, and however many more kids you have.
Yep. Wow.
Yeah. That's all facts. And depending on what state you in, the rate is even higher in your southern states and your states with where they're like food deserts and medical where like people can't get access to the C-section rate is even higher. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. And I know, so let me say this. Some C-sections are very necessary. Some C-sections are absolutely necessary. So I don't want to say that no C-section is necessary, because that's not the truth. But C-sections, there should be a medical reason. One, for any kind of induction. Like, don't tell me because I done had 2 high blood pressure readings. no. Let's do something. I'm scared. I'm at the doctor's office. My partner probably sitting in the car and I'm by myself. So yeah, my blood pressure might be a little bit high. Can y'all try to put me at ease, crack a joke, do something? Let's check my blood pressure again. Let's do that. But if you have to medically have a C-section, it should be shown to you in proof, in numbers, in documentation, in lab results, and whatever.
Even for me, I feel like, sorry, I just feel like if a C-section is the reason, the C-section is not the only reason for her passing. It's the simple fact that her husband was not listened to. They didn't see the signs that her husband saw, and she was told she wasn't a priority. So whether it was a C-section, whether it was a vaginal birth that went wrong, whatever it is, it's a simple fact that when someone said, hey, I don't feel right, or hey, she doesn't look so good, that was not respected. I can agree though, C-sections get pushed. But it's like, even if you are going to have a C-section, just like any other major surgery, I still expect you to do your due diligence. And if my support person here says something is wrong, or if I say something is wrong, I expect that to be listened to, whether it's a C-section or whether it's I broke my pinky toe. Like, I need y'all to listen to what I'm telling you.
Absolutely. But I guess that's what's crazy for me, because having a C-section means you are a priority. Yeah. Because you've been through that surgical realm, and they need to check up on you. They need to make sure that you are okay. You're not throwing up, your stitches are not busting, you're not you're not bleeding excessively, like things aren't happening. So if a C-section, especially a C-section mom, says, hey, something's not right, the first thing you need to do is come in and check, and then go get the doctor. You don't tell the person they're not a priority, or you don't tell the person, oh, I'm busy, I'll be right back. No, you come in right away and you check on that person. That is just absurd to me.
Yeah, I think Monique had something to say.
Go ahead, Monique.
I'm gonna say that I did not, I wish some are more knowledgeable, right? Like, I was one that was like, yo, I'm getting old, Jesus, so I need to hurry up and have some babies, because I was under the impression of, I'm over 30. This is, after I get a certain age, I'm going to have these difficulties, X, Y, and Z. So, I get married. 6 months into our marriage, now we're pregnant with twins. So because I was so just like, ain't no way in the world I'm getting ready to push two people out, nowhere. Okay. I can't do that. So if, I said my whole 38 weeks, I was like, yo, Dr. Plessy, I'm dedicated to about 3 strong pushes. If I push 3 strong times and no people come out, we can go ahead and have a section, right? Because I literally was just like, I didn't know. But probably about 2 to 3 weeks before going into delivery, so my anxiety started going through the roof, because mind you, it's a pandemic. All these people that I envision I can have in the room with me are not able to come. I hear about this same story. And on the news, it was like they were talking about pregnant women in COVID. They were talking about African American women, COVID, and deliveries and deaths. Like, it was just bad. So I was like, this is not good. And that's when I started researching, C-sections versus natural birth, or X, Y, and Z. So I just wish that more moms would reach out for more knowledge and support if they don't know, just so they won't be like, oh, you said I need a C-section. Okay, cool. So how to advocate for yourself. And after I saw those things, I started telling my husband, like, all right, this is what I want to happen. Like, if you see X, Y, and Z, you don't need it, because my husband, he ain't gonna buck unless he really gotta get bucked. You know what I mean? But I'm like, no, sir. If you gotta get hype, I need you to do that. And I was feeling like pain, and I kept telling them, like, and to this day, it's one part of my scar that is swollen more so than the other part. And that's where I would have the most pain. Like they would try to put lidocaine patches, all this stuff on this portion of the scar. And I was like, man, I don't understand this. So he kept being concerned about me asking them for things or asking them for more medicine. And I'm like, no, when we leave here and we go home with these two people, they're going to send us some bills. And in those bills, it's going to tell us everything that we are going to have to pay for, and our insurance is going to have to pay for. So I can ask for whatever I want as many times as I need to ask for it because I have that right. But all of that to say, like, it is important that we are knowledgeable and our spouses are knowledgeable. If we have whoever our support system is, we all need to be knowledgeable in how to, move forward in that birth process, because I wish I had known. So that way I would have been like, no, I actually don't have to have a C-section. Like they kept saying that my baby B, which was my daughter, she wasn't gaining as much weight. So that's why I needed to go ahead and try to have, they was like, oh, she's not gaining weight fast enough. So if she don't gain enough weight in X amount of time, then we're going to go ahead and push for the C-section. She got to come out. But she started gaining weight, but we still went ahead and scheduled the C-section. Like, had I known, I would have been like, well, no, she gained weight. They flipped. They're no longer transverse. They're both head down. So I really don't need a C-section.
Girl.
I think that's Missy's point too about the timing. Like we're guessing at the weeks that we think that our babies are, and they're constantly measured up against something. I remember my son gained a whole lot of weight in the last minute. It was one of those appointments where I was by myself and my anxiety was so high, and they were like, your baby's head is much bigger than last time, and his belly is very big. This might be, did you get screened for gestational diabetes? And I'm like, ma'am, I am due in like 2 weeks. I do not need new information tonight. Like, what is this? And this is all just comparing to other people. Like, yeah, fear tactics, I guess.
Coercion, fear tactics. Go ahead, Angie.
No, I was gonna say you check the box. That was the thing, because it's so funny because I went through my entire, when I say entire pregnancy, all the way up to 37. And the reason why I know this number is because I was looking at the notes that I was taking while I was pregnant. I was just looking at them the other day because I was helping another mommy. 37 weeks and 6 days was when I found out that Roy was breached. And oftentimes I kind of think back to from 37 weeks and 6 days up until my scheduled C-section, I never got another ultrasound. Like, not necessarily ultrasound, but like we went to like MFM, whatever, and she was still breached. But like even right before it, they didn't check.
No, and somebody posted that on Facebook today. I saw that
in the back of my head.
Yeah, like, somebody said that. They were like, okay, so before you take me in the back, can we like check to see if the baby's still breached? And they were like, we don't normally do that. She was like, no, you need to check. And sure enough, the baby was head down. And so they don't make it a habit of checking.
In my case, the day of my scheduled C-section, my water broke.
Exactly.
So coming that day anyway. So oftentimes I think about that. Like, it's nothing I can do about it now, but you can't help but to wonder, like, she was coming. He actually could have came out my vagina instead of being out if she was turned head. Because no one will ever, you won't ever know. I was having them crazy Braxton Hicks that felt like a basketball was like moving throughout my stomach. She could have been turning. I would never know that. That would just forever be a mystery, because of course they're not going to shout out in the operating room, oh, look, she's actually head down. They're not going to say that. So
I guess my question right now is, given everything that have transpired with African-American women, especially in the C-section rate, at what point do you evaluate yourself and say, medical field, maybe we need to change some of the things that we have been doing. Maybe we need to take a second look at these numbers and these charts that are so antiquated and dated. Maybe we need to have two separate charts, or one for and one for, and go that route. Maybe we need to do certain things, because if we have to keep going through this, at what point are we included? At what point is there equity? At what point are we going to feel like having a baby, not having to stress with a C-section, not having to be stereotyped, not having to be, all those things, having a bias just by walking in the room and you pregnant, At what point is the medical field going to say, let's look into this a little more, instead of continuing to sweep it under the rug?
I feel like how Shayla was talking about before, how like the dentists or doctors are being more proactive with offering solutions to problems that previous parents, I guess, have had. I feel like that's kind of the same thing, because, like in Angie's case, she's saying, had I gotten one more ultrasound, maybe this birth could have gone different. But for Angie saying that, there's still a mom who would probably be like, why are you doing another ultrasound? We already decided we're going to do a C-section. And then, like you mentioned, though, Naomi, like equity, but those are probably the higher paying clients, the higher paying who they're tailoring stuff to. And it's kind of like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? What's that saying? Yeah, the chicken or the egg or whatever, something like that. But like we are not, how we feel is not being prioritized. I can tell you that. Will there ever be a moment where we are prioritized? Probably not, because we're not, even though we may be the higher population of women who are having babies. I mean, let them tell it, we're having all the babies. But they're the higher paying ones. They're the ones who have the platforms to speak up on problems more often compared to what we have. So we're just, I mean, I don't know. I feel like
I even remember like when I had my C, to the point that Angie made, when I had my son, my C-section, I remember the doctor, after she opened me, she's like, oh, he's all the way down there.
Yep.
And I remember telling you guys that, because she was yanking, and I was like, oh my God. And I started crying. She's like, no, we got it. It's just, he's really all the way down. And I was 37 weeks. She's like, oh, he was down, ready to go, everything. And then when she was done, she's like, oh yeah, no, you will always have a C-section. Like, matter of fact, just, that's it. There's no room for, let's talk about it. Let's do whatever. Like, I was like, oh.
And then you have to try to sleep with the thought that, oh, did I really need that? Like, it's crazy, because like, to the other point, I was like, my entire pregnancy, I had no issues with blood pressure, had no issues at all. Like, my pregnancy was easy all the way up into that breached appointment. That's when it was like, everything was preeclampsia. You are morbidly obese, and you are this, and you are that. And I'm just like, but what was out of the other 37 weeks before we got here? It was like, I checked that one box, and then it just automatically auto-filled the rest of the boxes. So it's just,
it is.
It's just one of those,
But you know what? People can deal with anything, just about anything, if you give it to them the right way. So had she have had a bedside conversation, or any doctor that says, listen, this is what I'm seeing. So our preference going forward, or what we see as medically necessary, is that you're probably going to have C-sections as you have little people going forward. And this is the reason why it is medically unsafe for you, but you can still have children. You can still continue to carry, you can still continue to get pregnant, but we would just have to deliver you by C-section. And this is the reason. Do you have any questions? I'm sorry, I know that's probably not what you wanted to hear. If you give it to them, the bad news with a little bit of honey,
I got none of that.
People most people can take it, but to say, oh no, the rest of your kids gonna be C-section.
Even after when she came in the room, it was like a joke. Like she just laughed, and I was like, "Oh, okay." And then in hindsight, talking to all you guys, and I was like, "Oh."
But if y'all remember, as we had talked about maternal fetal medicine, and I was explaining how I only had like 2 trips there, and I think it was Sharita that was like, "You only went there twice." I didn't even know what maternal fetal medicine was until I had an appointment where they told me Roy was breached. That's when I got sent to maternal fetal medicine. I had never been before. So by the time I was being sent there, I only had enough time to go twice before she came. Like my 3rd appointment, I didn't even go to it because she was scheduled, I think, to see my 3rd appointment would have been on a Tuesday, but the scheduled C-section was like that Friday before. So like, I didn't even know what that was because she was like, "You've never been before?" I was like, no, you've never seen. So, yeah.
You know what not concerned me, what irritated me was the fact that although I had my prior surgery, although I was a candidate for C-section, although all that stuff transpired, after my first baby, everything was good. After when I got pregnant with my second baby, the doctor said to me, she went back and looked at the notes and she said, "I don't know why they didn't let you push that baby." I said, "What you talking about, Willis?"
Girl.
And hence the reason why I gave Rachel the information that I gave her when she was going through what she was going through, because I got that information straight from my doctor when she said to me that I could have pushed that baby out, even given my prior surgery. And I said, "What you mean?" And she's like, "Yeah, you could have, because it was this amount of time had passed from the surgeries till the birth. It was this, it was that. Yeah,
like,
I think you
but
could
you're
have pushed.
pissing me off.
Right, right. So my question was, well, why did you tell me that I would always have to have a C-section given the type of surgery? And every doctor that saw me basically told me the same thing. But the fact that she had known me for so long after the fact is when she said it to me. So I'm like, okay, I just don't understand what you mean right now. And hence the reason why I fought so hard, second baby, to have that vaginal. It still didn't happen, but I fought so hard because if this is what you said to me after number 1, oh hell, I could have a vaginal for number 2, but Jesus didn't see it that way. And I was okay with that. And I listened to Jesus, but you know, it was what it was.
It's the checkbox thing. It's the statistics thing.
Yes.
Yes. That's where, again, having an advocate, even if you're a doula, comes in handy, because she gave you that information based on your personal relationship with her. But any other doctor you see is just looking at your medical history and saying the likelihood. So let me just give her this advice. And no, it's like doctors don't want to take that risk. You know, they don't want lawsuits and all of those things. They don't want to be talked about in some medical journal.
Literally, yes.
It's just that personal touch. And having your child, whether it's your first child or your second child, you have an idea of how you want stuff to go. And, you know, you never let that go when it doesn't go that way.
And maybe this is another topic for another day too, but I feel like it also stems from how they book your office visits. Because I feel like if you don't overbook these visits, the doctor will have more than 5 minutes to spend with me, to get to know me, to speak to me, to explain things thoroughly, answer questions, and then go see the next patient.
It's like doctors schedule appointments with us like beauticians do.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
You get stacked 15 minutes in an hour when you know good and well that it takes longer than 15 minutes to wash, dry, style my hair. But that's exactly what doctors do. You don't know what I've come in for, even though you asked when I scheduled my appointment.
Yep.
And then I get
like, why would you ask me when I'm
what all
available?
the issues are, even though the nurse you had do my weight and stats asked me those questions. And so it's like, we spend 8 of our 15 minutes that they're granting us to be in their presence, rehashing what we've
what you just
already
told the nurse
explained to the other 3 people who work for them. And then they don't even want to give us the 7 minutes because they standing at the door with it open. And even a regular conversation, body language tells me if you standing in the doorway, you ready to end the conversation. So why do I want to prolong it? Because I'm bothering and harassing you. And so it's just like,
or you doing other things in the room as I'm trying to talk to you.
Shayla, that's when I ask
you
even more
looking at the
questions to
clipboard that the
prolong it.
nurse then just handed you about the next patient is the equivalent of the person looking at their cell phone while I'm trying to have a conversation. And
but that's because the insurance companies are billing them per 15 minutes. So every 15 minutes it's a routine. You're a number. So you're coming here. You don't even have to be pregnant. You coming here for your annual PAP exam. I'm gonna go in here. I'm gonna put your legs up in the stirrup. I'm gonna scrape a couple of things. I'm gonna stick my whole hand in your hoo-ha. And then I'm gonna say, okay, see you next year. If anything show up on the test results, we'll let you know. And you out the door. I'm sorry. I had questions. Maybe something wasn't feeling right before you came here. Maybe, but because you already do these like a conveyor belt, like babies, you doing a conveyor belt. So the average time, which is why progressing to fail happens way too soon, because they put you on a conveyor belt and it's like, you done seen our nurses 2 different times. It's time to get you out of here. Or I'm gonna have to do this C-section and I made plans. I'm sorry, why'd you make plans when you're supposed to be at the hospital? Like what? So it's moving people along on a conveyor belt. But if I'm coming to the doctors, whether it's a well visit or a sick visit, I may have questions that I felt like weren't detrimental enough that they could wait to this appointment. So I'm not gonna keep calling you every 15 minutes and leaving messages. I'm gonna kind of check my own boxes and make my own little notes in my phone. So when we show up, I plan on being here longer than the 15 minutes that it takes you to stick your hand in there and go, or listen to my heart say, oh, take a couple deep breaths. Oh, yeah, we'll see you next year. I'm sorry, that's not the way this is supposed to work.
Or the nurse will be in for the next step and you in there for 20 minutes getting cold and
waiting.
That part.
And then you get to the front and they be like, do you need another appointment? I don't know. Do I?
Do I? Yeah.
This is my
You tell me.
If my appointment's only going to be 15 minutes, can we do a telehealth? Because I'm not driving.
And then they make telehealth for stuff that you need a swab for. Don't even give me that. Like, how are you supposed to know through telehealth? Because you don't want me to put the camera there, right?
And not to mention that if they don't give you anything with telehealth that you could need. If you are in excruciating pain, don't go to telehealth, because telehealth's going to tell you they're not sending no prescription in for anything stronger than 800 milligram ibuprofen or an antibiotic. So don't even waste your time on telehealth. And even in the emergency room, they're doing the same thing. They seeing so many people that the doctors are going in, they write it, and then they out the door. And then the nurse has got you and 7 other people that they trying to run through. Like, what is this? So when do they have time to really recognize in labor and delivery if something is wrong? Like when? And like you said, if you just had a C-section and you in PACU, you are the priority. But as soon as you leave PACU and go to mother baby, you are one of how many ever that nurse has to handle. She gets you checked in. She come back in. They have to give you pain medicine. You're supposed to get it every 6 hours, but you got to remind them. And then you might get it at hour 7. And by that time, your pain is out of control. So then they just want to tell you, oh, it's coming, instead of coming to check to see what my pain is actually coming from. So we got to do better. We got to do better. We have to do better. And the fact that this woman, passed away, this is not an unheard of story, especially in our community. This is not. People forget. Serena Williams almost died. Beyonce had complications. It was the highlight for 35 good seconds. And then it was gone. So if they're not changing things for Beyonce, do you really think they changing stuff for little old me?
Who supposedly can handle the pain anyway? That's why you only deserve Advil after a surgery.
Is that not the most ridiculous foolishness? They only sending you home after major abdominal surgery with ibuprofen.
Because you can tolerate pain.
Sit down somewhere. Sit down somewhere. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Why is this again? And doctors are actually saying to patients, no, because you're breastfeeding. I'm sorry, but the 7 other people on the floor that just had C-sections, they all get something stronger for the pain, and I get ibuprofen. Why are we doing this? Why?
I want exactly what you gave that lady who in her house on stilts that now got a habit that created a pandemic that leads to health centers and drug centers, because apparently she was able to get that after her C-section.
And every other time that she went to the doctor, that's why she addicted, because she was able to get the script from the
people. Then you send it to the health center on your dime. So I'm sorry. We got advertisements about raising funds so we can send you to the health center.
Thank you.
I mean,
thank you. I needed a whole hysterectomy, and they told me the pain can't be that bad. Me asking for pain medication was addictive seeking behavior. And then after my hysterectomy, you're gonna look at me and say, I don't even know how you were walking around. Oh, okay. Okay. But when I was asking you for something stronger for this pain, I was fighting addiction. Okay, what are we doing? So I just feel like it's not really a fair fight. It's fixed. The game is fixed. It's rigged, and it's going to take a whole lot of us to stand up and fight and advocate and make some noise. When they started messing with all of our rights to carry children, and all of our rights to have abortions, and all of our rights to life, everybody, they rioting in the streets. Everybody like standing up, and we protesting. It's our bodies, you know, whatever. But when it only affects a certain group of people, can't get the same push behind.
And I'm gonna keep saying it for as long as I can. That's why groups like this are so important, because we have doctors that do exactly like we've been saying this whole time, right? And the platform that you have and you open up to women like us for us to educate ourselves. Like, if I didn't find out about this group, I don't know where I would be. And then post you having the child, all the stuff that comes with that, because they sure do show you like these happy little you know, videos of, oh, here's what the hospital looked like, here's all these things, but leading up to that and what happens after that, you know, those are pieces that are important that people just leave off the table. So kudos to you and thank you.
Listen, I got it. I know what I was missing when I had my littles when I was younger, and it was community and somebody to tell me it was going to be okay. And so I just felt like if I could tell somebody it was going to be okay, then, you know, one person. So it has been.
Next time Angie's going to bring ice cream for the class.
For everybody. Everybody want ice cream.
We're going to wind down with ice cream.
We're going to wind down with ice cream.
I'll be looked out.
At least tell me what kind you eating.
It's vanilla, but it came with a cookie brownie.
Oh, come through.
So yeah.
You had your gallon of water today.
Side note,
we got closer to the camera for that one.
Nikki and Shayla,
I gotta finish this by the time we get off.
The cookies and cream dessert from BJ's was good. My cookie was soft.
Yeah.
Bye, Rachel. Ain't nobody talking to you.
Bomb.
Ain't nobody talking to you. After you waited for 4 hours, it should have been.
I sure did.
4 hours. That was freaking ridiculous.
My salted caramel and sugar cookies still on the counter.
Oh my God.
That's a rock now. Throw that out.
It is.
I put it in a Ziploc bag. It was a rock when I got it. So
throw the whole thing away. Throw the whole thing away. Ladies, it has been an amazing chat. Next week, we'll be joined by Dr. Thompson again from TLC Pediatrics. If anybody that is watching or will be watching before next Wednesday has any questions for the pediatrician, please email them to hello@melodichands.com, and we will make sure we get those to her ahead of time, and make sure that your questions get answered. Please like and share this page and some of your mommy groups as well, because there are a lot of women, like you heard Rachel say, we all get together and hang out, and, all that stuff. But people are everywhere. Like I think Sansa Ray joined late because she's in California where the sun is. I'm just trying to say. So yeah, so hopefully next week when we come back in, she'll be able to come in a little bit sooner. And that's fine. I know she has something to do with her one of her little ones. So that's wonderful. So share, like this page, tell as many people as you can. The next week the doctor will be in the house so that you can ask questions. We love you all to life. We are here to stand and support you. If you are in the DMV area and you need doula care, reach out to us, www.handsofmelody.com, handsofmelody.com, and check out our website. Reach out if you need support, anywhere from conception, preconception, all the way until your littles are old enough for you to come back and help us out with the next set of mommies. So we will see you all back here next week. And the answer to that, Shayla, is yes. And let me hit the outro, and y'all gotta tell me because y'all know how I be doing. Here we go. Can you see it? Can y'all see it? Is it good, Rachel? All right, there we go.